You got to watch her. Glenn, you got to watch her, okay? That lady right there.
She's causing trouble.
Yes.
And that one big on me, too.
Well, that's because she loves you. I don't know about her. Okay, this morning we want to continue our studies in the unseen realm. There is just so much information. It's her. She's a bad influence on you. Okay. But there's just so much information. That for my lifetime, I was never aware of on this subject. And when Dan and I started studying this stuff over the last 3+ years now, it opened up a whole lot of doors that were, quite frankly, were a little scary at first. Simply because in our brotherhood, we had never put any focus or emphasis on the unseen realm to any great extent. It was just something that was up there, and maybe someday we'll get to see it all, but it didn't have much effect on us here and now. But I've reached the conclusion it has a tremendous effect on us in the here and now that will prepare us for what is up there, wherever there is, in that unseen realm in a place called heaven, a domain called heaven. This is going to be a situation in our study in the next 2 Lord's Days, Lord willing, that again we're going to introduce a concept that, quite frankly, for all my life was over my head. Good point. And that's what's kind of scary sometimes, Everett. Yeah. Pardon? Everett, speak up. She's hard of hearing.
You're going to have to repeat it.
I was going here. What did you say, Everett, now? Good point. Yeah. And that's what we did on a lot of subjects. We just ignored it because we did not know how to handle it or to make sense of it. And it, in some cases, kind of clashed with what we thought we did know, okay? And this is going to be another one of those situations, okay? I'm going to give you some background in Genesis chapter 10 on the nations and their formation. But then beginning in chapter 11, there's this profound statement that is made. Deuteronomy chapter 32 is going to be another place where there's a profound statement made. And it just kind of jars you. What? How can that be? But then as you continue research and become a little more familiar, it all begins to fall in place. And then you scratch your head and, why didn't I know about this before? It would have made teaching, it would have made preaching, it would have made a lot of things easier to understand and more meaningful, because we got an overall understanding of where all this stuff is leading to. And again, I want to make a statement that I made twice already in other classes. Rather, we're going to spend more of our existence in that realm than we will ever spend in this realm. And so it behooves us to learn as much as we can about the other realm that we're going to be dwelling in. And it's going to be an exciting realm. It's going to be a realm that's going to be filled with joy and love and peace and just all the wonderful things of God. And that's where Jesus has gone and is preparing for us right now. That's exciting. And the older I get, I know my days are numbered. They just are. My body tells me it's really numbered. But you know what? That doesn't bother me. Because I know that my Lord has prepared a place for me that is beyond my wildest imagination. And he says, we're going to give you some clues along the way to help you understand and to get where you are now and where you will be for eternity. Because my Father loves me, and he loves you. And he wants to spend eternity with both of us. All right, so let's press on. All right, this is going to be based out of Genesis chapter 10 to start with, okay? So we'll kind of know where we're at. These are the sons of Noah. In Genesis chapter 10, from the sons of Japheth, from these the coastland peoples spread in their lands, each with his own language, and by their clans, and in their nations. Now notice the four things that I've highlighted. Keep those in mind. Okay, you go to Ham, another son. These are the sons of Ham, by their clans, their languages, their lands, and their nations. Repetition. Go to Shem. These are the sons of Shem, by their clans, by their languages, by their lands, and by their nations. Now, do you see what is being emphasized in Genesis chapter 10? Four primary things. Families, or genealogies, the word genealogy is used in the text. Languages, linguistics, vocabulary is talked about. There's lands that are designated, territories, and then there is the beginning of these nations. These nations and their politics. By that, I mean their governance, okay? Within each individual nation. Another little thought here, these nations will eventually be called the Gentile nations. They're not that yet. That word is not used. But eventually, these nations that we're talking about in Genesis 10 will become what is called the Gentile nations. The Israelite nation is not in existence at this time. God doesn't call Abraham till Genesis 12, and then starts that process for the formation of a people of his own possession, the Israelite nation. But right now, that nation doesn't exist. Nobody has a clue what is coming except God himself. These are the clans of the sons of Noah, according to their genealogies, in their nations, and from these the nations spread abroad on all the earth after the flood. Okay, Joanne asks, is this when different nationalities come about? Yes. This is the formation of various nations of people, the language they spoke, their families, clans, their genealogies, and the territory that God assigned them. Okay? This is the beginning of that real process of identity. And then it's almost as if Moses comes along and says, hey, let me tell you something else. Do you know how all this started? And then you have Genesis chapter 11. That's how it all started. Okay, I know that is small print, but that gives you an idea. And you can look this up on the web, or you can look probably in the back of your Bible, or something like that, Bible dictionary or something. And you'll find what is called the Table of Nations / cities, because there are 4 cities that are really city-states, okay, to begin with. But here are the sons of Noah, and here are their descendants. Now, the red dots represent those that are in line for the Messiah, okay? That is God's ultimate plan, that through this clan over here, eventually the Savior would come. Up to Genesis chapter 10, this is all that's there, okay? Later on, through Abraham and his descendants, the further lineage to the Messiah is revealed. Okay. On the left-hand side, 26 nations came into existence through those sons, okay? In the middle, 30 nations, 4 of those nations were cities. Okay, down below the very bottom, the light-colored box, there's 4 major city-states that came into existence. And then over here on Japheth had 14 nations that God brought into existence through his descendants, okay? That is a total of 70 nations that come into existence, God setting the boundaries, and now here are these nations functioning to some extent in their day and their time. It kind of reminded me of Acts chapter 17, verse 26. And he made from one man, Adam obviously, every nation of mankind to live on all the face of the earth. That's an important statement Paul makes, okay? That's an important statement that Paul makes. That to live on all the face of the earth, having determined allotted periods, God says, I'm going to tell you how long this nation is going to exist. When I raise it up, it will exist, and when I want to take it down, I'll take it down. It comes into existence, it can go out of existence. It all depends on the attitude of the inhabitants of that nation. Whether they seek to glorify God or they seek to turn away from God, and the cup of iniquity eventually becomes full and God takes that nation out. But at this point in time, Genesis 10, 70 nations come into existence, okay? And God has allotted their periods and the boundaries of their dwelling places. So God is in control of this whole thing. And the control is to eventually bring the Messiah. This is just part of the particular process that God is using at this particular time. Okay. This is a general area of where the sons of Noah and their descendants begin to settle and create the nations that are spoken of. You can see that Japheth is primarily up on the top there. Italy, Greece, Tarshish was the term back then. Tarshish, Greece. When we studied Galatians, we talked about the Anatole range there in the center, what is modern-day Turkey, stretching over into other parts of the ancient Near East. You look at Shem. Shem was primarily what you and I would classify, I guess, as Saudi Arabia and areas like that, Iran, Iraq, those particular countries. And then Ham, primarily in the green, North Africa, up the coastline of the east side of the Mediterranean Sea. And then every once in a while you'll see little pockets. That's just human nature. We're explorers, we're wanderers, And so once in a while you'll find the descendants of one of the brothers in this area surrounded by a whole lot of other people of another brother. And of course that's what's going to happen when we start talking about the plain of Shinar. You'll see it in the green. Let me get my super flashlight. You'll see it in the green right up there. That's Shinar. Well, that place started through a descendant of Ham. And yet most of Ham's territory, countries and what have you, are in northern Africa and, of course, this tip of what we would call, again, Arabia. But this kind of gives you an idea, based on archaeology, what we've uncovered or what archaeologists have uncovered as to approximate places that these nations, these people scattered to and began to have those nations in existence. All right, if you will, turn to Genesis chapter 10, or chapter 11, I'm sorry, and let's read this together. And then I want to come back and note some words to set again the context for what we want to say. Genesis chapter 11, beginning with verse number 1. Now the whole earth had one language and the same words. Catch those two phrases, okay? And as the people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, "Come, let us make bricks, burn them thoroughly." And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, "Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. And let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole earth." Verse 5, and the Lord came down. There's the transition. And the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. Past tense. Okay? Up to this point, a certain amount of the city was built, a certain amount of the tower was built. Okay? And the Lord said, "Behold, they are one people, and they have all one language. And this is only the beginning of what they will do. And nothing that they propose to do will now be impossible for them." Verse 7, "Come, let us," and I emboldened us, there's your counsel. Okay. "Come, let us go down and there confuse their language so they may not understand one another's speech." So the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth, and they left off building the city. Doesn't mention the tower anymore. Left off building the city. Verse 9, "Therefore its name was called Babel, because there the Lord confused the language of all the earth. And from there the Lord dispersed them over all the face of the earth." You kind of get a repetition there. Something is going on from the human side. Something is going on from the divine side. And Yahweh's intent, purpose, has always been that human beings, humankind, multiply, fill the earth. And the episode in chapter 11, the humans are doing exactly the opposite. They're staying in one place. They're building this city. They're building this tower, the ziggurat, this temple zone. And they have reasons for doing that, by the way. But the humankind, the human beings, are not doing what God had commanded. Multiply, fill the earth. Go over the whole face of the earth. Don't stay in one location. Spread out. And represent me, Yahweh, wherever you go. And these folks said, no, we're not. We're going to stay here. We're going to make a name for ourselves here. We're going to build this great city. We're going to build this great tower into the heavens. And we are going to be the crossroads between the divine and the human at the top of that tower. It's going to be a place of worship. It's going to be a temple zone. But who are you going to worship? That becomes a problem. All right, let's go back. Now, the whole earth had one language. The Hebrew word there for one is primarily defined as unity. Well, if you're united, you're one. So the translators use the word one. Now, the whole earth had one language and the same words. That's vocabulary. Literally in the Greek, or not the Greek, but the Hebrew, it means one lip. They had one lip. In other words, they all had the same words. There were no foreign words. They were all the same words. Every human being understood a common language and spoke with a common vocabulary. You know, I've often thought, what language did God use in the Garden of Eden? What language did the serpent use? What language did Adam and Eve use? What language? There was some way of communication. Now, a lot of biblical scholars says the thrust of the thought of language is it was probably Hebrew language. I don't know. I'm not that smart. But there was one language and there was one vocabulary. And brothers and sisters, those things unite people. It unites people. Common purpose, common cause, common dreams. We can communicate with each other, understand each other. We can share our dreams, our ideas, and we can do just about anything we want because we are a common people with a common language. That's no different today. But you know, that offers a choice. You can use language to unite, or you can use language to divide. Now, I know a lot of you have traveled to foreign countries. Languages are different. Unless you've done any preparation whatsoever, it's foreign to you. You don't understand all the words. You don't understand the vocabularies. And you're kind of at a loss. And you either make the decision, I'm going to learn as much as I can and try to understand, or you wind up isolating yourself because you just don't know what's going on. You don't know how to mix with people, how to share things in common. You just don't speak their language. They don't speak your language. All right. And as the people migrated from the east, they found a plain in the land of Shinar. Now, the word Shinar is the land between the two rivers. That's what Shinar means. The land between two rivers, Tigris, Euphrates River, what we call that Fertile Crescent area. Okay, they found a plain in the land of Shinar and settled there. And they said to one another, come and let us make bricks and burn them thoroughly. Now again, this gives you an insight into culture. They knew how to make bricks. They knew how to make kilns. They knew how to make molds. They knew how to dig the clay and what clay would work and what clay wouldn't work for their project. I mean, a whole lot of things can be mentioned just by the idea that they settled there and they began to burn bricks. So they burned them thoroughly. And they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Now the word for brick that is used there in the Hebrew is a white, chalky clay. We think of clay, we normally think of gray, or maybe a little tint of red. We don't see much in the realm of white clay, although it exists. But I just got to thinking when I read that and looked up the Hebrew, can you imagine a humongous tower built out of white brick? I don't know how big the bricks were, no idea. But if it was white, I don't know if it's a brilliant white, it's kind of a chalky white. Chalk doesn't necessarily coincide with bright white. In some cases, kind of a dull white. But would that not be impressive if you were 15, 20, 30 miles outside of Babylon and you saw that humongous structure being built and it was white? Now let me give you some contrast. Bitumen. The word for bitumen is the idea of a thick, in many cases a semi-liquid tar or asphalt. It's the meaning of the word. And what they did is they used the bitumen for mortar between the white brick. So here you got black with white brick. Visualize the contrast. And again, you're coming into that city, and what do you see? Wow, that's impressive. What architecture. Look at the beauty of that. White, and look at all the black mortar in there. It just makes it stand out. I mean, I can see where some arrogance could come into play. Aren't we great? Look what we build. Look at our design. Look how beautiful it is. Plus all the other things that are associated with it. Okay, come let us make bricks, burn them thoroughly, and they had brick for stone and bitumen for mortar. Then they said, come let us build ourselves a city. Now the word city there in the Hebrew is a walled or fortified city. And oftentimes it would have surrounding villages. So here is going to be this city that they're building, and it's going to be surrounded or fortified with massive walls. You look at architectural renderings of the city of Nineveh and other cities in the Old Testament, and you look at these fortified walls, and they're just humongous. Well, that was what was going on in the building of the city of Babel or Babylonia. Okay? Come, let us build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the heavens. Let us make a name for ourselves, lest we be dispersed over the face of the whole world, the whole earth. They don't want to split up. They don't want to scatter. We want to settle in the plain of Shinar. We want to build our great city and our humongous tower to the heavens, and we ain't going anywhere. And yet God had told humanity, multiply, fill the earth, spread out over the whole face of the earth. And God had a reason for that. But here is humanity choosing not to do it, rebelling against God's wishes. All right, verse 5, and the Lord came down to see the city and the tower which the children of man had built. And the Lord said, behold, they are one people, and they all have one language, and this is only the beginning of what they will do. Now, I guess this is God's foreknowledge in his mind. I know what they're going to be doing, and I'm going to put an end to it. I've already experienced several situations with humanity, and humanity has a great tendency to think evil continually, to corrupt everything, to create nothing but chaos. and to drift farther and farther and farther away from me. And I'm not going to have it. I'm going to put a stop to this. The Lord said, they are one people, all have one language. This is only the beginning of what they will do, and nothing they propose to do now will be impossible for them. Come, let us go down and there confuse their language, so that they may not understand one another's speech. Now the word confuse there, Hebrew term, means to mix up. It's like you take Kool-Aid, put it in a pitcher of water. You mix it up. Okay? So God says, my solution to this problem is that I am going to mix up their languages where they will not be able to understand each other. The purpose of that was, if I can't understand Daryl, my chances of associating with him and working with him become pretty slim. We can't understand each other. And I'm not good at sign language, so brother, you're in trouble, okay? We come over here and Jack speaks another language, and he doesn't understand Daryl and he doesn't understand me. What's he going to do? He's going to search out other folks that maybe speak his language so they can begin to communicate and understand. Well, do you see how the breaking up of the language begins to divide the people? You're going to find a group that you're compatible with. Well, God knew in his mind that group we're going to call a nation. That nation is going to have its own clan, its own language, its own territory. In some part of the face of the earth. And so this is ultimately, of course, what God decrees. And the purpose of it, the Lord dispersed them from there over the face of all the earth. Now, the things that we are familiar with are the things that take place in what's called basically the ancient Near East. You know, you start up above, you know, what is modern day Turkey, Greece, you know, all through that region, Italy, Tarshish. You start coming down the eastern side of the Mediterranean, you have Syria, you have the land of Canaan, Philistia. I mean, you start getting all these nations forming. But you know, that's just a small segment of the world. Small segment. But that's the area we're most familiar with. How far did they go? Who knows? The earth is big. Man has enough intellect that he can build something to get to another part of the world. He's an explorer. This is just unending, okay? Therefore, in verse 9, therefore it is called Babel. Now that primarily, we talk about the Tower of Babel, and what we're saying is there is a tower in the city of Babel. That's what we're saying, okay? Babel, or Babylon, is the name of the city they're built, okay? It just happened to have this tower in it that stood up like a monument you wouldn't believe. Holy mackerel. Oh, I don't know what to say. We'll continue next week. Yeah, I know. But there's so much that needs to be said. Yes, sir.
I see a parallel with one language
Uh-huh.
and our current day IA. Artificial intelligence.
AI, thank you. You confused me. You confused me, Jack. You mixed it up. No. Okay. Who knows? But the thing that I want to get across, and we'll continue on next week, okay, Lord willing, is that this is a massive project. And we'll talk about the founder of Babel and the impact, the influence that he had on the whole region. And then we're going to see a situation where God says, I got some more news for you. Huh? Do what? What did she say? Joanne, are you influencing her again?
She said she can't take any more right now.
Can't take any more? I'm serious. There is so much. Barrett and I were talking, a couple weeks ago, and when we were doing some of the slides for the giants and what have you, and he was asking about the Amorites, were they giants? And we spent some time researching and collaborating with each other. And at the end I said, man, Barrett, so much information, so much to learn, and life is so short. Life is so short.
Bill, back to AI.
Yes, sir.
God dispersed Tower of Babel because of one language.
Mm-hmm.
God would be thinking about dispersing us with this AI.
I have no idea. I don't know how to answer that, Jack. I've used AI one time that I know of. Okay? And my oldest daughter was showing me how to use it. And I said, well, let me give you some thoughts, and you plug it in, and let's see what happens. And so I started giving her information about all the giants and the places where they resided and everything. And she plugged that information in a matter of 10 minutes. I had 3 pages of information that had taken me 3 years to accumulate. That was shocking to me. That was absolutely astounded me that it could take just the information that she typed in, and in 15 minutes have a 3-page article, essay, or whatever you want to call it, research paper, that it covered everything that it took me 3 years to accumulate myself, book by book. Okay? It can be used in a very healthy way. But I also see horrendous danger in that. And we just have to be careful. Keep your focus on the Lord. Has the other bell rang yet? Not yet? Well, it ought to. Good luck. Happy Father's Day. Continue next week, Lord willing.